Welcome to At the Ready podcast, where we gear up men to navigate life's battles with purpose. Join us as we arm ourselves with wisdom, faith, and a community of men prepared to walk this life together. Now let's get ready. In this episode of At the Ready, I sit down with my friend Brandon Riley. Brandon and his wife are CEOs of Refab Boutique. They do DIY and sell clothing online. I don't know that much about it, but Brandon and his wife do. Brandon tells us his story of how he met his wife, how he went from being a man's man, how he went from being a lineman who hunts and fishes and does all things outdoors to running a women's boutique. But his story is great, and he still is the man's man. He talks to us a little bit about marriage and how to be the leader of your household, even though your wife is someone semi-famous in your area. So sit down, put in an earbud, listen up as I talk to my friend Brandon. Now let's get ready. All right, welcome, Brandon. Welcome to At the Ready podcast. It's good to have you.
For sure. I'm excited.
Yeah. We already talked a little bit, but you weren't even on my list of people to interview.
Yeah.
And I'm going to call it divine appointment. One day we were in the gym in a time that you don't normally go to the gym.
That's right.
And I was like, there's my friend Brandon. You know, we worked out together several years ago at a gym called Primal. And then since then, our lives have kind of taken us in different paths. So We're not close friends, but we know each other well. And for whatever reason, I felt like, the Holy Spirit was like, you need to go talk to that guy about the pod.
Yeah, that's cool. It's really cool.
And I was happy that you were like, hey, absolutely,
Yeah.
You remember what I said to you? Like, I got something I want you to pray about.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And what I say back, I said, you might want to tell me what I'm praying about.
Yeah.
Don't like walking into the unknown. You know?
But you didn't hesitate though. You were like, oh, okay. I'll pray about it, And we were able to make it happen, so that's good. But all my guests, man, I just have them tell their story. So wherever you want to take off, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. I want to first say, I think what you're doing here is just amazing. I think, like, as we talked about it, God had kind of laid something on my heart, the week before even, like, hey, I think this direction you want to go and to be able to reach men and to help them. And I think it was priming me, like I told you I guess it was yesterday or the day before at the gym again. We ran into each other, and I said, I think it was God just priming me for this opportunity to be able to step up here with you and to sit down and have a conversation today. So
yeah, it always blows my mind the way those things work out. Yeah. Most people call it coincidence. We don't. We call it divine appointment.
That's right.
God's he's a chess player, not a checker player. I mean, he's always working things out in the beginning. So he was working on your heart before me and you even saw that day.
That's it.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. So it gives you chills a lot of times, like you just like think about like how he works out. And that's kind of my story of my life. God has kind of always opened and closed the doors as we went. If I were to go back and tell you my story from the beginning, we'd be here for all day long and we'd bore the audience and they wouldn't want to hang around with us any longer. So I think where I'll pick up is like kind of like what we talked about earlier, probably where Brooke and I met, because that's kind of the beginning of our story together. So Brooke is my wife, for those of you guys who don't know, and Brooke and myself, we run Refabbed, which is a DIY decorating business, and also has a Refab Boutique, which is an online women's boutique. And, you're wondering, like, why is a guy that's sitting here, that runs a women's boutique sitting on this particular podcast, right?
I'm not going to lie. When I first heard about, like I said, we've known each other several years, and I'm sure you'll get into this, but you left a job to go do this, and I was thinking, ain't no way I'm fixing to work in a woman's boutique. But I think that's what makes your story cool.
That's right.
And very special. So continue on. Sorry.
Yeah. So Brooke and I met back in college. I won't go into the story of how we met, but it's a funny story. Maybe one day we'll tell that story as well. But we met. First time I saw her, first time I laid eyes on her was at my apartment. We were having a get together there, and from that day forward, like I told my friends, I'm like, I want to go out with this girl, And so then we got to hang out one more time. And I was actually supposed to be going on a date with someone else. She was going with someone else. We ended up talking the whole night, and we just connected. But she was like, "Hey, I can't go out with you. I can't go out with you. You're too wild." Because at the time, I was not
college.
It was college. Yeah. That's right. You know what I mean? It was college.
Yeah.
I was having a good time, and Brooke has always been straight lined and doing well with her walk as far as it comes to that. And she's like, "I can't go out with you," but I was like, "Just give me a chance. Just give me a chance." And so she did eventually give me a chance. After that, I remember sitting on the couch and telling my buddies, saying, "Hey, I'm going to marry this girl one day. I'll do whatever it takes to marry this girl.
Yeah.
My life will change." And I know, looking back, that God has used Brooke to change my life, and that I have been able to change her life as well. And so we've grown together. And when we met, it was like I told you, I think at lunch, that we had a very quick, we knew within a few weeks, hey, we're going to get married. It was probably 6 months later that I actually asked her to marry me. And within a year, we got married. And Brooke and I both were fortunate. When we moved back to Mayfield, I already had a job established. At the time, it was as a land surveyor. And we moved back into my parents' house. And at the time, they kind of gave us a good deal on the house. We bought the house. We began to remodel that house. She got a job at West Kentucky Rural Electric, which was a great job for, local utility here. Yeah. I was working doing the land surveying, but we were flipping this house, and then we ended up buying another house down the road with my brother-in-law, and we flipped that house. And then I eventually got a job at Mayfield Electric. So we were both working at local utilities. We were both doing the utility thing. Great jobs, right? I mean, we nothing to complain about. We had great jobs, had a great life. But we've always both been side hustlers. I think I told you a little bit about that earlier. We both constantly are doing something to try to make a little extra money. Right. Brooke would sell jewelry, or she'd sell makeup, or she would sell this, or she would sell that. She tells a story a lot of times about when she grew up selling her clothes out of the back of her car. It's just like
that's
that.
Ambitious.
It's just always been ambitious.
Yeah.
Even as a teenager, she would take her clothes to school and sell them out of the back of the car. Say with me, I'd raise tobacco, or I'd buy a four-wheeler and I'd trade it. I'd buy a car, I'd trade it. Right. I'd do this or whatever we could do to make a little bit of extra money, because we wanted nicer things in life. We wanted to be able to do more things.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily always the material things. It's just like a lot of times we love vacations. We love to travel. If you know anything about us at this point in our life, travel is a big part of our life. We love the experiences. We love the experiences with our kids. And so that was important to us even early on that we did that. So that's why we kind of started all the side hustles.
Right.
And so as we kind of progressed with that, and next couple of years, I ended up the land surveying business. The guy decided he was kind of wanting to cut back a little bit, and didn't really know where it was going to go. And the opportunity presented itself for me to work at Mayfield Electric. I took the job there.
And that's different than where your wife worked, right?
Yeah. So she was at West Kentucky Rural Electric, and I was at Mayfield Electric.
Gotcha.
And I was actually hired on in the internet department to, work on fiber. And, actually, we didn't even have fiber at the time. It was wireless internet at the time that Mayfield was offering. So I was hired on to do that. And then an opening came up over on the line department to become a lineman. And, of course, in our area, lineman is a great career.
Yeah.
And so I took that opportunity and joined the line crew. And, honestly, it was a great career.
Yeah.
And
that's this is a man's podcast. That's a pretty manly job.
It's a manly job. Manly men, right? Yeah, that's it. I mean,
Well, that job, too, I think people, take for granted when there's storms, guess what? And I lose power, I might be a little bit inconvenienced, but those linemen have to go out there in that storm and get my power back.
100%.
So that's some tough work.
Yeah, it is. It's like you said, it's a manly job. It's a lot of the linemen I know are the manliest men that I know, and you have to, there's sometimes they work 24, 48 hours straight, sometimes even longer, just depends, but power's bad, just like the tornado, we got hit with a tornado here. Fortunately for me, I no longer was there.
Right.
And we'll get to that part here in a little bit, but those guys worked hours upon hours and are still working hours upon hours just rebuilding the town,
Yep.
and it's a very, very tough job, a lot of physical labor. And at that time, that's when we met. We were at the gym. That's when I was going to Primal, and I would usually a lot of times, either take my lunch break and go work out, or right after work, I would head over there to Primal to work out. And part of that, the part of the working out was just to physically stay in shape so that I could be good at my job,
Right.
and make it easier as well. But also, to like the vanity point, we always want to try to look good.
Want to look good, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So like, that's where we were at with that. But and to your point, like as far as like the hobbies and everything that I do, like I love to fish, I love to hunt, I love to be in the outdoors. I love everything that, a manly man would love, right? And like, how would I go and be working in a women's boutique,
Right.
So
I was going to say that's one extreme to the other almost, man. You went from I do all these things, I'm working selling women's clothes. That's right. That's right. But God had a plan. Yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to lead to is God had a plan for my life. I didn't know the plan. And if you had asked me the plan 10 years ago and said, hey, this is what your future is going to look like, I would 100% never come close to guessing what it looks like today. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have told you the same thing. There's no way it'll be like this is today.
Yeah.
And so, God always is kind of opening and closing doors, as we go through it. And this is what he's done for us. And so Brooke, as she was working at West Kentucky Rural Electric and I was working at Mayfield, there was a lot of stress that was involved with her job. She had, some times where like, just the stress would overwhelm her. She was taking the high bill complaints. She was taking a lot of the phone calls, like all the people that was upset, like you and I, and our bills get high.
Yep.
And we have to give them a phone call, and we're not the happiest because our bill just jumped up $200.
I can't imagine that being your job every day. Like
no.
people that work customer service complaint departments, nobody ever calls you in the high bill department and goes, hey, my bill went down. Thank you so much. You don't ever get that. It's like, hey, my bill went up. What the heck is going on?
Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of like reviews. Like a lot of times I talk about like the reviews online because I use reviews wherever we go. If we're traveling, like I'm like, well, let's look and see what the Google reviews
Me
are,
too.
or we'll get on TripAdvisor or whatever, and see what the reviews are. And before we ever go eat at a restaurant or stay at a hotel. And I'm like, the reality of that is most people only get on there to complain.
Yep.
And that's the same thing in the high bill complaint department there. So that's what she would get a lot of times. But it became very stressful for her. And so we had kids at the time. Eden, this was back in 2015, if I remember right. So I've sped it all the way up to 2015.
Okay.
So this was in 2015. She had just started her blog prior, and she in a blog, for those of you who don't know, is just to kind of, a lot of times when you go on there and you search like anything and everything, like how to clean your house or how to decorate your house or what cars are the best cars out there, like what anything you search, typically you'll end up on a blog. It's somebody writing, a description of how they do something, what their point of view is about something, have imagery there, and you'll also see the ads that are on there, right? And so that's typically a blog, and hers was about DIY decorating. At the time, she was painting some furniture too, because I told you we was always into the side hustles.
Yeah, doing some furniture flips.
Flips, and we were flipping houses still. So that had continued on all the way up until we got to this point, 2015. Brooke and I got married in 2007. I think I skipped that whole time frame, but because I'm trying to get to the point to where we really want to be today. So, at 2015, she had started this blog. She'd written the blog about the DIY decorating. She had was talking about the furniture flip. We were flipping houses. She was talking about that, and she was just trying to find a way to express herself. Just a way that she could share what she knew, what she enjoyed with the world.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the initial start of our business.
Yeah.
And
I listened to some of her, some other podcasts she had done, and she was saying in some of those, like she had always been artistic.
Yes.
And like she originally thought she was going to be a poet,
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
That's
Even
right.
from elementary school, I remember her saying that in one of hers. So she had that artistic ability. She just needed a way to get it out.
That's it.
And the blog was the
That's
way.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, she's very creative, has that creative spirit, always looking for a way, like you just said, to be able to express that. And so writing just comes naturally for her. And so it's a great place for her to land,
Yeah.
So she started doing that, and the stress had built up from the high bills complaints, and all the things that were involved there. And that part of the story, we can tell it a thousand different ways. It really doesn't matter. It's just
Right.
the point that she got stressed and life was hard, and we had young kids, and she had started a blog, and it was time for us to make a decision. And so us as a couple, we came together and we tried to decide like what we wanted out of life. That's what we do. We talk about our future and what that might look like.
Right.
Especially when it comes times to make tough decisions.
Absolutely.
And Brooke and I both have always been, we're not going to make a decision without the others, something that's going to change somebody's life without the other one. Now, she has trusted me a lot along the way because, even prior to this, when we were buying houses or buying land or buying whatever it may be to trade on, we're not talking $500, we're talking thousands of dollars,
Right.
I would make that decision prior to ever talking to her. And because she would have that trust in me, she had built that trust in me as her spouse to make those decisions and to move our business forward, that side of our business,
Right.
our rentals, our flips and stuff like that. And so that trust was already established. And so then we come together to make this life-changing decision of leaving this public job that offers 2 retirements, offers, of course, because it was a 401k and a retirement system, that offers a really nice salary, vacation time. It's like you're going to come home to work on a blog and spend time with their kids. Like you can imagine how people thought we were crazy, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think those kind of decisions are what keeps people from reaching their full potential, is because to do that, you have to take a big step of faith.
That's right.
A lot of times, because was she making any money on the blog at this time?
No, that's the thing, and she always tells this, like, at this point, making zero money,
Yeah.
right? Like the blog's making nothing. Like
The blog is just like a hobby, really.
that's it. It was
Yeah.
a hobby. It was more of a hobby than anything. At this point, and it wasn't like and that's the thing I think some people get mixed up in the story. It wasn't like she was coming home because this great career had started, right?
Yeah.
She was coming home because it was a life decision of what was best for her life and the best that she could be for our family.
Yeah.
Because we needed Brooke healthy, to be there as the great mother that she is and to be there as the great wife that she is. And it wasn't about this time, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to chase these dollars, right? It was a life decision.
Right.
And we knew that no matter what, that God would see us through this.
Mm-hmm.
We knew we could, rely on my income. We knew we had enough hustle in us, both of us, that we would be able to, supplement our income with whatever we had to do to make it work.
Yeah.
Even if we had to end up going pick up another job, we would make it work, whatever we had to do. But at the time, we were comfortable in saying that, we could live off my income at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then as she quit there and as she came home and began to work harder on the blog, well, that entrepreneur spirit was able to shine through.
Gotcha.
She was able to say, you know what, I can do more with this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Brooke had sat there and like learned how to build her website on her own. She built her own website.
Nice.
She had learned everything she knew about blogging. Now there was a friend of ours, Katie Drain. Some people around here probably are familiar with Katie, who is the one that kind of I think put the idea in Brooke's head. Because Katie was doing some blogging and stuff at the time, and shout out to Katie for all that. For sure. She was a big influence in Brooke on getting started with the blog. But as far as learning how to put it in there and stuff, Brooke dug in there and began to learn. You know?
That's the same. I can relate because starting this podcast, I can watch all the videos I want, and try and learn, but I still have to figure out how to use the software, use the camera,
That's right.
put this sound over that video.
That's right.
I have to learn how to do all that, and some of that can only come from just sitting down and trying it till you figure it out.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that's what she did. And she began to do it. And even before she left, probably, and as I tell this story, we're just trying to fit it into an hour. So realize I'm skipping a lot probably.
Mm-hmm.
But even prior to leaving West Kentucky, she still was probably spending a lot of hours at night. Like, I mean, she would stay up till, a lot of times she tells it that she would stay up till like 2 or 3 in the morning and get up the next day and have to carry the kids to, to preschool or to the babysitters or wherever, so that she could get to work on time.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
She's burning the candle at both ends.
Burning at both ends, So not only was the stress involved from work, it was she was burning at both ends of the candle, right? And so then when she got to be able to leave that job and come home, she got to really dig her heels in, and really start to see that thing flourish and the blog flourish. And from that, it took a couple more years. And so
and during this time, you're still just, I don't want to get the man's, I don't want to override the man's perspective.
Yes.
During this time, you're still just being supportive husband. You're grinding.
Yep.
You're working your lineman job.
That's
you're still side hustling.
Yep.
You're still flipping some
still
houses.
Am. We the whole time we're redoing houses. And at that time with the flips, it wasn't like I was outsourcing the work. You know what I mean?
You're doing it.
I'm doing the work, right? Like I'm spending the hours, like after I've worked all day, me and whoever I can round up to go help me, or spending the hours at the house, whether it be painting or laying flooring or plumbing or electrical or whatever it may be. I was doing it all, just everything to get the job done. I needed every dollar we could make to survive, right? Like, so I didn't need to like hire anybody to do it. I needed to get in there and get dirty, You
need some buddies for your help.
Man, I remember like one of the houses we redid, like all the insulation under the house had gotten wet, and like the duct work, a lot of it came loose and stuff, because that's how you get a good house, right? You buy one that's rough, nobody else wants to do, right? I remember suiting up, day after day, crawling underneath that house with all that insulation getting all over me, and just doing it.
It makes me itch
just
thinking
doing
about
it. You know what I mean? And so that's it. I was still just grinding it out, and as to say, come home at night and I'd be like, Brooke, what have you done today? Right?
You wrote an article? That's all you did?
What? And I didn't understand fully at the time, you know what I mean? And so I think it's important to hit that. It's like, I was still trying to even figure out what a blog was. I remember the first time she mentioned a blog to me, I'm like, what is a blog? So yes. So
could you not have done the dishes in between?
Yeah, it's like, that's what I'm thinking, right? Like, can you not pick up the house? I mean, like, what have you done? You know what I mean? But like, she was busy, and I didn't realize it as much at the time. It took until when I catch up here in a little bit and get to where I was working in the business that I realized all she was really putting into it. But as we do, I was supportive in her decision, but at the same time, I'm like, man, like I'm out here dying every day, in the heat, whatever it may be, cold, doing my line job, and then I'm going and I'm working here at the house, and so it's a struggle, it's a back and forth. So about 2 years into that, I guess it was, I'm trying to keep the timeline as best I can figure it out. Sometimes it's just a guessing game with some of that for me. But I think our conversation, if I remember right, was early of 2018. We talked about, I don't need to get there yet. I need to talk about when I tore my bicep tendon first. No, I'm trying to think how we want to piece this story together so we can get to where we want to go.
Yeah,
I apologize. I'm sorry, guys. So we was talking about Brooke being home and doing all the thing, and me still working full time. And so like we had a conversation, was like, early 2018 of like, hey, is this a hobby or is this a job?
Yeah.
We got to decide what this is, because at the time we're building the house that we currently live in, which is a nice house, a nice home. And we, want to still take vacations, like she's still talking about wanting to go here, wanting to go there, and wanting to do this and wanting to do that. And I get that. I love all that stuff too, right? And I still like to go on hunting trips, so I was like, money's an issue. Like, at some point, like if you're going to do all these things, it's like.
And at this time, the cost of living has risen. So you are, living on one income is hard,
right.
Period. Like me and my wife live on two incomes, and we do okay. We're, upper middle class, but still it's getting harder and harder. I couldn't imagine doing it on just mine,
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So you had to have that talk with her. Like, is this a hobby?
I had to have that talk.
What are we going to do about this?
And like that's where we were like, okay, what are we going to do? And she tells it so beautifully. She's like, you're not going to send me back to work. You're not going to do this. You know what I mean? Like in her mind, that's what she's thinking, but we're having this conversation and I'm like, I understand that you're passionate about this and I understand you're putting a lot of work into it. And I have been supportive up to this point, and I'm still supportive of you continuing to do this, but we got to make a decision. If this is a hobby, fine, you can do it forever. But we got to decide, are we going to give up doing the vacations? This beautiful home that we're building is going to cost us a lot more than the ones we lived in before. So we're probably not going to be able to go and do things, Or are you going to go get a job and continue to do these things? Because, now she's been at it now for 3 years, a little over 3 years. And still not really making any money. I mean, it's bringing in some money, but it's not making money.
Yeah.
It's bringing in money. And everything's going back into the business. So it's like, in a lot of entrepreneurs, or even if you don't have the business sense, they think that's making money. And the same deal with Brooke, at the time she's like, I'm making money, but I'm making money, but I'm like, well, look, honey. Yeah. And that's where I come in. I'm the business mind, right? Yeah. Like I come in, I'm like, no, let's break this down. Yeah. And this is where we see we're not.
Yeah. If none of this money enters our bank account and gets to stay, then when it's not making money,
right?
It may be bringing in money to the point to where, okay, now the business is sustaining itself, but it's not paying us anything.
That's right. That's right.
Because ultimately, you're giving up your time. You have to decide what you want to do. Are you giving up your time for a certain amount of money? That's with any even business. And a lot of times people don't. They think, "Oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm gonna own my own business." Man, entrepreneurs put in a lot of hours.
Oh, lots of hours.
And before the business becomes successful, which we're going to get there, you put in a lot of hours for no pay in the beginning.
That's it.
So,
and I think that's why it's important that we told this first part of the story. Right, is that you could see up to this point, both her and I have put lots of hours in before this business has ever become profitable. Mm-hmm. In the end, we get to the story here in a little bit, of where we're at today, and God's been very good to us. Mm-hmm. But it was a lot of effort. It was a lot of work. And like when we had this discussion of like, is this a hobby or is this, a business? Brooke has probably put 12 hours a day in for, 3 years into you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And we're trying to decide. And to your point, what I talk about in the business world a lot of times when I'm doing coaching, because we do coaching now, is that, your time is your biggest asset.
Yep.
Because you cannot replace your time, right? Like more money can come at any time. Money is infinite, time is finite, and so time is very valuable. And so she spent 3 years of her time up till now, invested fully in it. And I've spent 3 years of my time investing back into her and into, our lives to keep it going at this time. Right. And so we're making this decision. And basically at this point, she's made up her mind that she's going to figure out a way to survive this and to be able to stay home and do what she loves to do. And she says, just give me to the end of the year. Give me till December.
Okay.
And I agreed to that.
That's good.
Yeah, it was good. I was happy with that. I was like, this is good. We're making progress, you know. And even though in the back of my mind, I'm probably thinking, if I were to look back, I want to say, oh, yeah, I knew we was going to make it. I knew it was going to happen. We were right there, and I knew it was fixing to happen, you know. But when I look back, I would probably say that I was probably thinking, well, okay, I can make it till December, and then we can go get a job, right?
I think if anybody's honest, any entrepreneur or person that started a business or any kind of venture whatsoever, whether it started out as a hobby or you started as a business, there's always a little bit of doubt.
Yeah.
You just have to either have a little more faith than doubt or just choose to ignore that doubt. But there's always a little bit of doubt. Anybody who ever says like, I just knew from the beginning I was going to be a millionaire.
Well, you do it scared. That's what we always say, is you do it scared. The fear, is there. It's always going to exist. But you just got to do the hard things. You got to do the things that that you're afraid of and keep going through them. Mm-hmm. Like if I let it beat me down every day, we would quit, today. I mean, that's the thing. I just know like my God is going to see me through.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep following through. And that's where we had gotten to. And so we had this conversation early 2018. Brooke has been in a mastermind with another group of entrepreneurs across the country. And for those of you who don't know what a mastermind is, it's a group of entrepreneurs, or it could be, business owners, or whatever it looks like, a group of people who meet together that are like-minded and discuss what is working within their business to help others succeed.
Yeah, you're just sharing ideas.
Gotcha. Right? And just sharing ideas. And so, like, she has been in a mastermind, which we really probably couldn't afford. But in December of 2017, we were Christmas Day. I remember this clearly. We were sitting at her grandparents' house, and she had applied for this mastermind, which at the time was going to cost, and if I remember right, I think it was $12,000 is what it was going to cost. And I'm like $12,000.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm thinking now.
Well, I mean, we're living on one income, we're side hustling.
Yeah.
We did have it, but I was like, man, this is going to strap us.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, we're talking back and forth, keep going back and forth, whether she should do it, not do it. And I guess it's a good prelude. I probably should have brought this up from the beginning, but, like, my mind is kind of like a squirrel, if you can't notice. So, like, sometimes you may have to rein me in.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, because that's just kind of where I go, like how I am, but it works for me. But so, like, that conversation on Christmas Day was that she'd applied, and she's like, what do I do, Brandon? Like, what do I do? And this goes back to her trusting me as her husband.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, I know it's a lot of money. And she's like, I do think it, if I can get in there and get the right ideas, it could really help us. But she's like, and she's tight. Brooke's tight. Like, I'm not. I am the spender in the group. Like, Brooke is really the frugal one that would shop. Like, even to this day, she loves to go thrifting. She loves to go just, get her clothes wherever. She don't even care. You know what I mean? Like, she's not like I'm more of the spender and like the nice things and like to buy nice things. It's not because I'm drawn to that stuff more. Right. But anyways, she it's okay if I put my feelings down? Okay, yeah.
Be comfortable, man.
And so, like, she was asking me, what should I do? And, like, I at the time I wanted to say, no, you shouldn't do it. Because I'm like, okay, it's $12,000. Man, I can go on a lot of trips for $12,000. But I believed in her drive. I believed in her passion. And I believed that if given the right tools, she could succeed. And so I told her, I remember standing in the hall, like right outside the little bathroom they got there. And I said, Brooke, come here for a minute. And I said, you need to tell her right now, the lady that was doing it, I said, you need to tell her that you will be in this mastermind. Just go ahead and send her the email right now.
Yeah.
And send her the email. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
She's like, well, I don't know how. I said, we'll make it happen. And so she signed up for this mastermind. And so this sped up to our conversation of, like, is this a hobby? 3 months later, basically, probably in February, March, sometime of that year. Is this a hobby, or is this going to be a job? We had that conversation. We said we're going to give it to the end of December. She goes to the mastermind meetup. They have meetups, across the country. She has a conversation there with a gentleman named Damon Oates, and he gave her the idea of, have you ever heard of Shopify? Have you ever heard of drop shipping? Have you ever heard of this and that? And gave us a few other tips along the way. And she hadn't at the time heard of that.
Right.
And she comes back and she's like, I've got an idea. She's like, people are always asking me, because she was doing a lot of Facebook Lives at the time. Yeah. And at the time, she probably had 25, or 6,000 followers on Facebook or something like that. She had built a good audience. Yeah, dang. And she was getting, 100,000 views a month on her blog. So she had built an audience. But it still wasn't making any money. Right. But she said, they're always asking about my clothes. They're always asking about my earrings, this and that. And she said, I think I'll start a online women's boutique. And I was like, okay, if that's what you want to do. Within a couple of days, she had a website. She figured it out on her own again. Nice. Yeah. Up and built, and had it, this boutique going, which is Refab Boutique, which it is today, which is actually the side of the business that I run now. And she had it up and going, and, the first sale trickled in. I'm like, wow, okay, cool. We're selling something. Yeah. Because we're drop shipping, which, for those of you who ever think about starting a boutique, I would not suggest.
Now that's where, like, all right, so drop shipping is that you basically put up a picture or something, they order it, and then, but you're not holding on to any stock. Yeah. That's it. That order goes straight to the person that makes it. They make it, package it, and they ship it to you. You're kind of like the middleman.
You're the middleman.
You got the idea, you put it out there. You have the audience and the idea, and
it can work if you got it set up in a different way. We were doing it through China vendors, which, so
long lead times.
So like when it would get shipped, even if it would get shipped that day or 3 days later, it would still take 2 to 3 weeks to arrive to the
It's
customer,
got to be
right?
in a cargo ship in the ocean
It's
forever.
right. It takes forever to get there. And so, like, there's some models with it that work with drop shipping. And so I'm not saying don't ever try it. Like it sometimes is a good place for people to start if you, don't have a lot of capital to start out with, which we didn't.
Right.
So it was a good place for us.
Yeah, y'all spent $12,000 on
That's right.
Mastermind.
That's exactly right. So I mean, like, we didn't have a lot of capital to invest in buying inventory at the time.
Yeah.
And so, like, and with that, you have to work a lot of stuff on the back end. So, like, you connect a place called Oberlo, and it may have all changed now, where the actual, like, the products run through, and then it connects to your Shopify store. So you got to go in and, like, verify the shipping and verify some things, so forth and so on. And so it takes some work on the back end of that. So
Gotcha.
the first orders kind of began to trickle in. And if I remember correctly, like, May maybe made $500. Yeah, maybe $500. Then like April, maybe $1,000. And then June, it's made $4,000. In July, it's making $5,500, and like we're like, okay,
yeah,
we're going somewhere.
This is an income almost.
This is it. We're starting to see some sign. I tear my bicep tendon.
Oh.
Okay, so that's when we were working out.
Yep.
We'd been hitting the powerlifting and doing all the things. Didn't get hurt. I was still doing good. And I'm moving a toolbox inside of my building.
You didn't even do it lifting weights.
Not even lifting weights. There was a gentleman that was helping me move the toolbox. He dropped his end, and like just naturally as you do, I just went wham, grabbed a hold of it, and that bicep tendon tore. Just right there, you got the scar from it.
Yeah, I can see it.
And it didn't actually sever completely. And this was what was crazy. But I've heard it pop. You could physically hear it pop, and I felt it. I said, "Come on, let's get this toolbox moved." So I go ahead and we move the toolbox, get it put back, and it's sore.
Yeah.
But I'm like, all right, just whatever. I'll go back to work the next day because it's not pulled up. Like typically they pull up when they sever.
Yeah, you see them like wadded up in the
That's
top.
it. Yeah. And so it didn't. It's just sore. And I was like, well, I got to go get this checked out. So I go to get it checked out. The physical therapist is like, I think it's just sore, this and that. And of course, insurance makes you do all these crazy things. They sent me to get an x-ray. Of course, I'm like, an x-ray, they don't show nothing on a tendon or a muscle or anything. Yeah. So I go get it checked out, and there's nothing there. So I go back to work for like another couple weeks, but I keep having like pain.
Yeah.
And so I go back, and finally, they're like, I'll do an MRI on it. And they scan it, and they can see that it's torn. It's hanging, but like the threads, like 3 or 4 little threads, like he showed me whenever he actually did my surgery, but I mean, it was like nothing.
It probably wouldn't have took much.
I can't believe it never did break because I actually still went bow fishing and stuff. Like we're big bow fishers. So like we have a boat that my buddy and we bow fish a lot, you know? So still doing that, still working as a lineman, pulling and tugging and fighting,
You got lucky.
Yeah. And so it doesn't, but anyways, find out that it is tore. I had to have surgery. I have surgery. And it's going to put me out at minimum 12 weeks, which ends up being like 16 weeks. But during that time, the first like couple weeks, like I can't sit still. I'm a doer. We done said all that, right? Like I got to get up and go. We were running live events at this time. Brooke had started doing some crafting events. And so like I was like,
so she'd host like a party and 50 people would come watch her.
Well, so she had been doing for a while, doing like kind of like paint parties, or like local crafting events around here with like 15 or 20 people or something like that, just to kind of try to make a little extra money. So she'd been doing that, but these were bigger. Like these would be like 85, 90 people.
Okay.
And we were hosting them in Nashville, Tennessee, a higher ticket item.
Gotcha.
And like we'd put on a show for like 3 days, and like they would come in and do their crafting, and like we would feed them, and it was a big to do.
Gotcha.
A lot of fun and really, really good events. And like we were just starting them at the time. And I was like, I can help, cut the stuff for it and get that ready. So I had this big brace, and she's got pictures of me out there cutting that. And I said, by the way, I'll start doing the back end of this boutique stuff while I'm off, so that you can focus on your other things. Because we're trying to get her to be successful.
Right.
We want her to win, right?
Yeah, you can click a mouse.
I can click a mouse.
Yeah.
I can move stuff around,
Yeah.
And business is just my mind. And so like I loved it.
Yeah.
Like I was excited about it because it was giving me an opportunity to do something else. And so I start doing that, and we go back to another mastermind meetup. I remember like being there, and like me, and we took our kids with us. And I remember because I was off. And I remember like being in the hotel room, fulfilling these orders and stuff, like transferring all the orders, filling them, getting them sent, so forth and so on. And I could just remember this thing growing, remember it growing. So I had surgery in like August. I'm thinking it's September, October. I can't remember for sure. It's one of those. We made more money in a month than I can make my whole year of being a lineman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, whoa.
That's a big deal.
That's a big deal. It's a real big deal. And I'm like, we found our niche.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like we've taken off, and things are going really well. Her social media growth has exploded. She's beginning to get more viewers on live, more followers. It's went up to 60, 70,000 followers at this time, getting more blog views. Everything's starting to take off, And she asked me a question. Are you going back to work? Well, yeah.
Of course.
Right? I mean, what does a man's man do,
I'm
right?
a lineman. That's what I do.
That's what I do,
right?
right? Like, I'm going back to work, you
Yeah.
know? Yes, so I'm going back to work. And then we thought about it. She said, I cannot run this thing by myself.
So it's grown to that point.
It's grown. Yeah. I mean, this thing's blowed up, right? And I mean, we got the live events going. She's getting, hundreds of thousands of views on her blog. Facebook takes up a lot of her time because what people would think is she's just getting on there, just doing a craft for 30 minutes to an hour. Yeah. There's a lot of things that are happening.
You got to set up
behind the scenes, and like keeping up with all the comments. Like for those of you who do want to start an online business, like it's very crucial that you respond to the people who are reaching out to you. Those are your customers. Those are the people that, you're going to provide a service to. And so like,
and it builds a relationship too.
It's a relationship. It's a lot to it. And so it's hours after hours, and she's spending all this time. And of course, me being off work, my original job as a lineman, I'm on the clock 10 or 12 hours a day with her.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, there's no way for her to be able to continue. She's like, either we're going to have to hire somebody or you're going to have to, begin to run this side of the business or run part of it or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm going back to work. I mean, I got insurance. I've got 2 retirements. I've got great pay. I'm going back to work.
Yeah.
And something just spoke to me and said, you know what? I've got something bigger for you, Brandon, And I told her, so this was a couple of days later, I said, you know what? I've thought about it, prayed about it. And I really feel like, if I can put my income back for 6 months, then I can comfortably run this thing full time,
You needed a little nest egg.
I felt like I needed to put a little nest and just make sure I could put my income back. We had a little bit of money because we just felt like we hit the lottery, right? So we had a little bit of money, but like, I want to make sure it's sustainable. So in my mind, I'm like, I need to make sure it's sustainable.
Was this a fad or is this something?
That's right. Is this something is it going to play out, right? And so, I go back to work, and she's asking me when you coming home, basically because we're running this at this time. We're still drop shipping, but in December I was like, okay, if we're going to make this thing really work, I said we got to start warehousing our products. I said, this is what's going to make this thing take off. We're going to warehouse our products just like we do today, basically. But like, we got to have the products in our hand physically so that we can deliver them, so that we can package them, so that we can make sure the quality's there. Like we don't want to be sending stuff out that's not quality. We want to make lifetime customers, and we want to give them the service they deserve.
Right.
And at this time, before Amazon now, they'll ship your stuff 4 days later. You don't ever know with Amazon. But then Amazon was 1 to 2 days. It was at your doorstep.
Yeah.
And so we were competing with that too. People couldn't wait a week, 2 weeks. And then, Amazon's getting them to them a day. They're like, where's my stuff?
Yeah.
And so like,
or you even forgot that you ordered it.
Yeah. Whatever.
My wife does it all the time. I'm like, what's this? She's like, oh, I forgot I ordered that.
That's right. And I do that stuff sometimes, but I get it. But like, that was totally it. It's like, we got to make it to where that we're servicing the customers right.
Yeah.
We got to be fair to them. And so I told her that, we're going to start warehousing products. So we're in the mobile home still building our house. Mm-hmm. We don't even have our shop built yet. So we moved the kids into like we had a playroom and a bedroom, and we had like an extra bathroom. So we moved the kids all into one bedroom, let them share in that bedroom. We took the playroom over and the bathroom over and started putting product in those in there. We bought some racks, put them in there, started putting products in there.
Out of a single wide trailer.
Out of a single wide trailer.
Dang.
Yep. And we were, we would fold them in the living room floor at the kitchen table, package them up, print the orders. We got pictures of like the little desk, where we print the orders there inside of our kitchen, and eventually, we hired somebody to come in and kind of help with some of that too, even right there in that setting.
Yeah.
And so like things are rolling good. Well, 3 months after I go back to work, we're like, this thing's going to work. God has got us, and we're going to do it. And so I end up putting in my notice, and I end up leaving of May of 2019. I left Mayfield Electric and Water to run the boutique full time.
So let me tell my side of this story. Like at this point, Primal's already closed down. So me and you aren't really seeing each other every day. And I just heard from a friend of a friend, like, Brandon quit his job, Mayfield Water and Electric, and this is not how it was, but this is what they said. He's working for his wife now at that boutique. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah. I said, that thing's got to be doing good for him to have quit his job. But I mean, that's a big leap of faith, man.
It was and there's no telling how many people I've come across since that day that said, man, we thought you were crazy.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
I'm gonna hold my hand.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I would have thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
Except I knew that I have a God that was going to see me through, and I didn't really. I've always lived life that way. I'm like, I didn't ever plan on being a lineman.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I said earlier. Like if you'd have asked me years and years ago, would I have been a lineman? No, that was not what like I'd have foreseen myself being.
Yeah.
And He's always opened the right doors and closed, the wrong doors. And have I always made the right decision? No, because sometimes I try to take control and try to guide it. It's like Jesus, take the wheel, and then like I just jerk it, over here.
I was just kidding. No.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I really want to go over here. You know what I mean? But this was an instance where I knew, if I would just be faithful, and if I would be consistent, that we could succeed at this. I'd already been able to, and I feel like I'm gonna one day have a tattoo here because I feel like He gave me that opportunity. That's why I'm so adamant about, like, I do believe it's divine, because I don't think that I could have ever figured out if Brooke and I could work side by side together if I hadn't tore my bicep tendon.
Yeah.
Because we know what, a relationship is like for husband and wife, right? Like you care about each other more than anything. And as we talked about earlier, like Brooke and I are both passionate people.
Yeah.
Like we both, are strong-willed. We both strong-headed, but we know when to walk away. If we got something we're disagreeing about, we were able to walk away. And so we were able to leave work at work, even though it was at the dinner table,
right,
and turn into husband and wife, and she would still treat me as the husband that I am. She was never my boss. She'll tell you to this day, she was never been my boss. Yeah. She's never tried to like be that for me. We've worked together. And even when she was the one that was the face and doing all the things, we were conversating a lot about what needed to happen and what it needed to be, and so like that was very important to us, is that we could keep our household and our business separated in the sense that we would still spend time as husband and wife, and then we would come together as business partners.
Yeah, that's good.
And so when I took that leap of faith and like we left out, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna leave the line work behind me. Now we've been warehousing the product. I'm now coming home, as to say, that's what we called it at the time, coming home, right? Or coming to run the business. We've got a lot to make sure. I mean, we're all in now.
Yeah.
We put all the chips on the table, and we're all in. And so we built our shop there at our house now. It's 40 by 50 shop's what it is. So it's 2,000 square feet.
Yeah.
We took and did about like a 12 by 12 little area there. So like, 144 square foot there. We made into like a little office. And so like we began to run the business out of it. So then we had shelving that went around it. We were like putting stuff in totes to store it in. And we had hired a girl and another girl to kind of help, with packaging and sorting through orders and to do the lives that you see now on our website and stuff.
Right.
And like, I began to kind of just like run this and see where we could take it. And so we done that. And do you want me to speed this up and get to where we are today? Or
we're about 50 minutes. So what? Yeah,
we're already at 50 minutes.
Oh, it goes by fast, man.
Golly. Like I know we ain't got much time. So like, I better speed this thing up really, really fast. Yeah. And if we need to come back and re-edit this thing, whatever.
No, we just let it roll. That's
Yeah. So sorry about that. Sorry, y'all probably just heard a bunch of rambling up until this point.
It's been good.
And so, like, I'm going to speed it up a little bit and take you, because so that's where we got to there.
Yep.
We made the big decisions. I made the leap of faith, trusted God was going to lead us, in the direction it has. And to today, okay, so Brooke gets millions of views on her blog.
Mm-hmm.
She has nearly 1 million followers, 930-something thousand or something followers on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram has, 150-something thousand. Boutique page has another 50,000 and 180,000 on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
We do multiple $1 million a year in sales in the boutique. The refab side of things is done really, really well on its own. So we're two separate entities now. I run the boutique side of the business. We have 17 employees there and two VA virtual assistants. Brooke has 3 employees on her side of the business and couple virtual assistants there. So we have a team. We've built a business, and we've grown, and we've been very, very fortunate. But we could have never got to where we're at today if I don't tell all that before and say we just trusted God to get us here, and that we leaned in to everything, that the opportunity that presented itself, and we said, you know what, God, we're going to trust you, and we're going to be all in with it.
Yeah. I want you to kind of hit on too a little bit. Now you do coaching too.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
think it's super cool.
And so, like, I kind of left all that out because it's another whole part of our business we do. And so, like, and I can't remember. It was end of 2019, I believe. After we've kind of got the boutique up and going and everything's running good. Brooke's getting a bunch of blog views. Things are going well there. And she's like, how can I help people to succeed like me? So she starts a coaching group. It's called the Creative Circle. And so right now we have right at 1,000 people that's members of the Creative Circle. There has at times been upwards of 1,900 to 2,000 people back in COVID, but now we still typically run around 1,000 people in that group. It's $47 a month, which is a great value because we do a Q&A in there. Brooke does a Q&A 3 weeks. I do a Q&A 1 week, and we have master trainers in there 2 to 4 times a month. Yeah.
So I see, like, just from what I see of your social media, is like most of the time you're kind of the background guy, business guy. Right. But I have seen in this coaching you're stepping kind of into the limelight a little bit.
Yeah.
And because you're coaching, hey, this is what I do on the business end.
That's correct. Yeah. So like, like we skipped over a lot of that because there's just so much to this story, right? Yeah. Like.
Brooke we may have a part 2 in the future.
Yeah, we may. That's what I told you last time. I said, well, we may have to have a part 2 where we're celebrating your success in this, right? Because I do think you're going to make a huge impact in men's lives. But what we found out is that Brooke has her strengths and I have my strengths. Yeah. I'm very business minded and I'm very analytical. Mm-hmm. And even while I was working at Mayfield Electric, as we said, I had several side jobs. We had rentals and flipped houses and did all this other stuff. I've always been business minded. I actually got a business degree after 7 years of college. But I've always just been entrepreneurial spirit, the same as Brooke, and I tell a lot of Brooke's story on the beginning of the business because she's the one that kind of initiated the business. Mm-hmm. But when it came to running the business, like a lot of the skills necessary to make the business function came from me. It came from me to be able to give insight on what we do. And so I can take all of my analytical side and the numbers and everything that I can see and make happen. And I'm very much a visionary too. Mm-hmm. And she's creative and a visionary in that aspect, but we've both been kind of blessed in the fact that we can kind of see what your business needs to look like tomorrow, and we can build a plan to get there.
Gotcha.
And so yes, I've moved into a lot of helping with the coaching, like doing the Q&As once a month, but it's more kind of her people in there because a lot of them are more women that's in that group. Yeah. And eventually I'm looking to hopefully start some more things for men because I do think there's a lot of opportunity for us as men to learn to not only, support our spouses in their businesses, but to start our own businesses, right. So from what we've done on that, I've been able to scale our real estate business into other things and, just continue to, because we believe in multiple streams of income. Yep. So being able to, venture into some other things on my own. And, I just love to try to share that opportunity because my biggest thing is impact. So money's great.
Yep.
Like we all like money. We like the nice things, and we see the highlight reels and everything on social media of like the frivolous things that we have. But that means nothing. Like the money means nothing if you're not making an impact.
Yeah.
I want to make money because I do enjoy some of those nice things, but really I want to make money so I can have a bigger impact. Because what that allows you to be able to do is to fund things like the Tim Tebow Foundation.
Yeah.
So like we were able to, give a lot to the Tim Tebow Foundation this year.
That's a great foundation, by the way.
Yeah. And so we're trying to get behind other places like that, like our local church, that's as important as anything, like local, as a business owner, there's constantly little league teams and other stuff, or schools or whatever we can to try to, give back. That's important. That's the things that really make a difference. That's the things that's going to be lasting. And so the coaching part of it is how can we help somebody change their life?
Wow.
That's what we really want to be able to do. And so we also we have live coaching events. We just had one back in August. And I spoke on the stage twice during that. Brooke spoke 5 times during that. And we had, different trainings and then some motivation mixed in and we feed everybody. It was a great event. I mean, I truly, I get so excited when you can see light bulb moments. I call it light bulb moments. You can see people's face just change.
Yeah. I always think that's great to pour into people. I think I tell people all the time, you'll never truly understand how rewarding it is to pour in and to serve others until you do it. And then, like you said, you see that light bulb or you see somebody's eyes light up, you feed into or fuel their ideas. Right. And in a sense, Brooke may be helping some of her competition one day.
Oh, for sure.
But it's more than that.
Well, see, we talk about community over competition, right? And obviously there is competition, you can't sit here and try to be in total denial and be like, hey, you put 2 boutiques side by side, you're not, one's not taking some money out of the other one's pocket.
Right.
But there's enough for us out there. Yeah. Right. That's the thing. Every one of us in business, whatever it may be, there's enough business for us all. There's just not enough people that want to put in the work anymore.
Absolutely.
If you're willing to get out there and hustle, and with what we have at our fingertips, just at the right anytime we want it, we can learn anything and do anything right there at our fingertips. We have the ability to control our own destiny. You really do, because most people just aren't going to work it. Most people aren't going to put the effort into it. It's like John Maxwell always says, consistency compounds, right? And it's just day after day, putting one foot in the other. And I learned a lot of that from my father-in-law. I used to be and I still am, because you can tell I just go 90 to nothing, but I used to be you just got to be going fast to get it done, right? But I watched him as he worked, because he's been successful in his life, and I've watched him how when he would come help me early on in our marriage, at a house that at our personal house or wherever I needed some help, he would come over and he would help me to work on, maybe it was the HVAC, or maybe it's lacing flooring, or maybe it's tearing out a bathroom or whatever. He would come help me. And I'd always just be like, why does he move so slow?
Man's never in a hurry.
Yeah. And sometimes he'd probably be like, why is he so lazy? Look at me, because I was probably pretty lazy too at times. But I just wondered that, just never seemed like he was in a hurry, but it always seemed like the job got done. Just always was done. And it really wasn't that he was moving slow. He was just consistent in his movements. He just constantly was being efficient with every move he made. And so it was just, that taught me a lot. It's not about just scurrying, and because sometimes, we can work ourselves to death and we really got nothing done at the end of the day.
So I think that's kind of important while we hear the first part of your story, because if we look at Refab now and we look at you and your wife's business that you built, I'm sure there are people out there who think, man, it must be nice. Look at what they have and look at what, but they didn't see all those nights that you were folding clothes in the single wide trailer. Right. They didn't see the months or even years that Brooke spent building this bit, just being consistent, like you talked about. And we're, as a civilization, especially with social media and highlight reels, you see it so evident all the time now that people look at it and think, well, it must be nice. But they don't see all the things that you did leading up to that, of just consistently working. And then after time, God blessed it, and now you are where you are.
That's right. Yeah. And there's nothing that kind of like brings up my radar. It's when somebody says, man, it must be nice. Or man, they're lucky.
Yeah.
You know, like there is no such thing as luck. You know, that's when hard work and circumstances intervenes, you know, opportunity, however you want to word it. You know, like that drives me crazy when people say that about others, you know, like in my presence, you know, or, you know, even say about me, I guess outside of it, but you know, like that's the thing, or like, must be nice. Most of the time, I'm not going to say all the time because there is the 1%, you know, or the 2% that, you know, somebody's handed it to them.
Yeah.
But most of the time, somebody's worked really, really hard to get to where they're at. You know, like I even remember in my past, you know, I can say I was as guilty as other people at times, looking at people who's been successful and being like, man, they must just got lucky.
Yeah.
You know, man, that must be nice. You know, I've been there.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to say that I've never been one of those type of people, but I didn't realize what it took to get there until I went through it. You know, just like all the hard work that's involved that you never see. Like, you know, it's kind of like you see the image of like the carrot, you know, like it's growing down in the ground. And all you're seeing is this little bit until you pull the carrot up and you see what's the results, you know.
That's a good analogy.
You know, I just think that's kind of the way it is. Like we never see anything but the last fruits of the labor. You know, we never see, you know, when the roots are being laid. We never see all that.
Yeah, and nobody wants to show that kind of stuff on social media.
No, you know, and that's the thing. Like I've honestly, like just as recently, I've thought a lot about this because like I want to inspire people to do better. You know, I want to inspire people that opportunities right in front of them, and I want to inspire them that hey, that don't let your current circumstances lead you. You know, like. Look forward. Don't look behind. It's kind of like I said the other day. Don't look through that rearview mirror. You know, rip that thing off and look forward. You know, so I want to inspire people. So I thought about that. It's like maybe you know I should be doing something where there is a lot of rawness to it. You know, where people can see like the everyday stuff, along with the highlight reels, right? You know, what I mean, like. But you know, I don't know what that ever looked like. But I do think people need to know more about that or need to hear this more.
People. Really relate to authenticity.
That's right.
And that's one of the reasons, like, with this podcast, that's all you're ever going to see. I'm not editing any of our conversation today other than maybe the joking we did at the front and then, you know, at the end. Right. But as far as, like, what we talked about from when I said welcome till we prayed this thing out, that's what it's going to be because that's who we are.
That's right.
You know, we're just authentic guys. Yeah. I want to kind of land this plane talking about one final thing. We've already chatted about it a little bit, but I'm going to be honest. I wanted to do my research before you come on my show. I didn't want to be, you know, I know you, but I don't know a lot of, since we've parted ways from the gym world, your business has grown. You and your wife have grown. So, you know, we got supercomputers. I pulled it out. I Googled Brandon Riley.
Yeah.
And one thing popped up, and it was a podcast with you and your wife. And I listened to it. It was good. And then I was like, okay, let me Google Brooke Riley, and a ton of stuff popped up, man.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, she has blown up. And I'm talking articles written about her. She's in the Forbes Growing 5,000.
Yeah.
Just article after article, podcast after podcast. And the reason I bring this up, not to belittle you, I want to know, how does it work for you in your marriage? Being married to somebody and leading your marriage well as a husband, being married to somebody who's so popular and so in the limelight and so out on the forefront in your marriage. I guess what I'm asking is, in your marriage, you know, are you the leader of your household, and what does that look like? How does that work in your setup?
Yeah. So 100%. I think that's important that we hit that. You know, if you were to ask Brooke today, who is the leader of your household, I'm without a doubt, I feel like she would sit here and tell you that I'm the leader of our household. You know, we built that early on when we said I do. You know, like kind of like I told you at the table earlier, you know, we became one that day. And that's the way we've always viewed it. Yeah. You know, and God kind of gives us direction in that. You know, God kind of lays it out there in his word, and he says, you know, for me as a husband, I should love my wife as Christ loved the church, and that, you know, her is my wife. She should respect, and she should, you know, whatever, however you want to word the rest of it. I'm not even going to word it because some people can take offense to that. But, you know, we knew that. But the first part that is important to remember there is that it said to love your wife as Christ loved the church.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing that right, the rest falls into place.
Gotcha.
And so like when now Brooke would tell you at times that I'm not perfect at it, you know, and I would admittedly say that I'm not perfect at it and I'm going to make mistakes. But we are one, and I am that head, you know, and she understands that, and she knows that, and she trusts my decisions. You know, that's the thing, is building trust with your spouse. You know, like oftentimes, like we break that trust with our spouse, and then we expect them to automatically give it back to us. That's got to be earned,
right?
You know what I mean?
Good.
And we have expectations, so we have expectations from our spouse. You know, either the wife expects their husband to be a certain way because of the movies or how their friends said their husband should be, or, you know, or the husband expects their wife to be a certain way because of whatever they've watched in the past, you know. And just to be honest with you, like a lot of people have expectations from a man's perspective, because a lot of people get sidetracked with porn today, you know, and that's been something that I've made sure that I've steered clear of in my life, you know, because I don't want to put that expectation on my wife, you know, and that's probably a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, we
you know what I mean?
We could spend hours talking about that.
We could spend hours talking about that, but like there's lots of things that cause that, and the thing that I found that's worked best is that we were under the understanding that we were one, you know, and that when it comes to the household things, I'm going to make the decision, and then when it comes to the business things, like, because we're partners, we're going to discuss it. Now we have separated our businesses because, as I've said earlier, we're both passionate people, and I run the boutique side and she runs refab side. And so on the boutique side, I am CEO. I'm head honcho. I do what, you know, everybody does what I say is going to happen,
right.
You know. And on the refab side of things, Brooke is CEO. In the end, we all do what Brooke's going to say.
Yeah.
But in both sides of it, I'm a COO and she's a COO. So she's going to have a lot of input, and I'm going to have a lot of input on the other, but somebody's got to make the final decisions. That's for the business. But in the household, I'm the CEO, right?
Yeah.
You know, she's going to give input and I'm going to listen to her, and I'm going to, like, you know, take that into real consideration.
Yeah.
And I'm really going to take the consideration of my kids' lives into it as well.
Absolutely.
You know? And she trusts me in that, and she trusts that I'm going to do what God is leading me to do. And so that's been the biggest thing, is that God has been the center. You know, it's like I can say I do this or she does that, but really it's all come down to we've made God the center of our life, the center of our life in business, the center of our life in the house, the center in our life in everything we do, every decision we make, you know. And when he's leading, things are just so much smoother. You know, it's just like we haven't really had that challenge as much so as in her being popular and her being the face of the business. And now I have to hear it every now and then of like this, you know, like, yeah, Google Brooke, and, you know, I see her name everywhere and your name's nowhere.
Yeah.
But I know confidently that we built this thing together.
Yeah. You
know, and like that's what's been the best thing, is it's never like I've never felt like she's overshadowed me.
Right.
And I've always felt like she's been and I don't know the proper term, but she's always been enduring or, you know, supportive in the way that she says, you know, gives me credit where credit is due as well. Like I couldn't have got here if it wasn't for, you know, you allowing me to, you know, do all these things and supporting us during this time, and now taking the business where you took it on your side and so forth, so on.
Yeah. So I want to read one of the articles, and I'm glad you went this way. And I asked this question confidently because I know you and I know that you're confident, but I wanted to read just one article that was written about her. It was called, the name of the place was called Shout Out DFW. But they did an article on Brooke, and I guess in every article they allow her to give a shout out. Yeah. And this was her. It says, shout out is all about shouting out others who you feel deserve additional recognition and exposure. Who would you like to shout out? They're asking Brooke this, and this was Brooke's answer. There is no way that this business would exist without my husband, Brandon. Without his support and financial stability through the first few years, it could have never made it. Now he is running the entire boutique side of the business and is the biggest reason it has grown to what it is today. The entire success of Refabbed and the Refab Boutique is because he believed in me and my dream and helped craft it into what it is today. Yeah. So I think, you know, where we land this thing is, if you're leading your house well in the way that God wants you to lead it, everything else falls into place.
That's it, man. It really is.
You know, I feel the same way in my marriage, and I've still yet to sit down with my wife so we could tell our story one of these days, but it's very similar to yours in that, my wife is an alpha female or a passionate person. Like you said, you and Brooke both are. And people look at me and say, we can tell who runs or who wears the pants in your relationship. And I tell them all the time, you'd be surprised at what my wife would tell you.
That's right.
I've got a picture that I have saved that somebody in the church sent us one time, and my wife is the worship leader of our church, and I play in the band, so I'm behind her, and people probably think, here your wife is, she stands out front, and you're just the background guy. I do sing. I'm not as good at it as my wife is, but there's a picture somebody sent us, and it was in a time of prayer, in a time, like an intimate moment, and she's standing behind me with her head on my shoulder. And to that woman, she said, wow, how beautiful of a picture of a man and a wife in a marriage.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's the way our marriage is.
Right.
She submits to me out of love, not out of obligation, out of love, because I try and lead our household and my kids and my wife in the way that God intended it to be. And just like you said, as long as we do that, everything else falls into place.
Exactly
so you don't have to worry about being outshined by your wife, because maybe in the business she's the face, and that's okay.
It's okay.
But in the house, and so that was just my advice. I kind of wanted to land that for the men. How do you be the man when you have, an alpha female for a wife? Well, the answer is God's way.
That's right. It's God's way every time.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like, lots of times, as men, we feel like we have to be or hold this certain like facade. Mm-hmm. Like we have to be like this certain way with everybody. And, in the gym a lot of times, and we see that amongst even us as we sit around as alpha males, right? Like we're flexing, we're standing there like, like we all got to keep it strong, even though when most of us deep down have like a softer inner person here that's there, you know, and maybe we're hurting, maybe we're dealing with something, maybe we just need somebody to talk to, whatever it may be. And I think it's important we start to break down those barriers. Yes. You know what I mean? And like, I had this thing, like, I really, like, a lot of times, like, I'm an emotional guy. Mm-hmm. Like, I just am, I don't know what it is, but I can watch a movie, and I'll be over here, like, sniffling, you know what I mean? Like, it's just
I've seen you swallow some back already.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, when you sit here and, like, you read something like my wife says about me, like, that fires, and, like, that's just my passion, you know what I mean? But I believe men can cry. We got to stop hiding that, you know what I mean? Like, we got to stop being what the world has told us we should be. Yeah. Like Jesus wept. Like the simplest verse of the Bible, right? Like that's that constant reminder. Like he was human, right? Mm-hmm. Like we're human, and it's okay. Yeah. It's okay to but it's also important for us to be the backbone. Absolutely. And it's also for us, like I might be crying, but I'm going to go through that fire, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there. And our wives need that. They need to know that we can be both. Yep. That we can be that soft shoulder for them to cry on. Or maybe they're not crying. Maybe they're just laying their head on it. Yeah.
It's important to remember Jesus was the lion and the lamb.
That's it.
We have to remove the but or the or and replace it with and. That's it. Jesus was the lion and the lamb. He is the Alpha and the Omega. We can be sensitive and strong.
That's it. And it's so true. And I hope that, all the men that listen in on this, that, even though my story was long-winded, I'm sure they're probably bored with the first part. If they get to this part, I hope they realize that, you can support your spouse, your wife, or even maybe you're the head and she, maybe you're the leader in business or whatever it may be. Yeah. And they can support you, and it doesn't make them any less than. That's right. You're not less than because you support your spouse in their wins. We should be that for each other. We should be that encouragement. We should be that rock. We should be that, even if they're failing, we should be that to pick them back up. So I hope that we can encourage others to do that. For sure. That's
very good, Brandon. I appreciate you coming today. It's kind of been a tradition that you got to be the one to pray us out.
All right,
so let's do that.
Let's do it. All right, dear Lord, I just want to ask you that you'll just be with us, Lord, and you'll be with each man that listened to this and made it to the end, Lord. That you will lead their lives, and that you will guide their lives, and that you will allow them to be the man that you would have them to be, not only in their business or their job or their household, but within every walk of life, Lord, no matter where they're setting, no matter where they may end up, Lord, that you allow them to be a light for you. And if anyone doesn't know you, Lord, as their personal Savior, I hope after this today that they can see what a difference that you can make in their life, and that maybe it would inspire one of them to be able to come to know you as their personal Savior, Lord. I just ask you would touch their hearts, Lord. I want to ask you to continue to be with Brad, Lord, and all that he is doing here, and that, this podcast becomes something more and bigger than he can ever imagine, so that he can reach others, he can reach other men, and he can guide them, and he can give them hope, Lord, because sometimes that's all we need is just a little hope, Lord. And Lord, I just thank you for the opportunity, and I want to say that I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be able to be here and to speak with Brad today and to speak with these other men today. And Lord, I just thank you for what you're doing in my life, and I just thank you for what you're going to continue to do in my life, Lord. And Lord, I want to thank you for what you're going to do in these other men's lives that's listening to this podcast, and what you're going to do in Brad's life, Lord, because Lord, we know without you we could do nothing, and it's in your name. Amen.
Amen. Until next time, stay ready.
See you guys.